And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Thank you for joining us. Earlier this week, Tyson Foods announced it would bring nearly 1,000 jobs to Northwest Arkansas. The Springdale-based meat giant said it was going to consolidate its corporate operations in Illinois and the Dakotas by relocating corporate workers from those states to the natural state. Joining me to discuss is Paul Gatling. He is the editor of our sister publication, the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. Paul, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the program.
Good to see you, Roby.
All right, we know 1,000 jobs are coming to Northwest Arkansas as a result of this move. Why is Tyson making this move?
Well, two things. I think one, they phrased it, this initiative is called One Tyson, right? So there's something to be said for working together in close proximity and collaboration and sharing ideas. So you're bringing some key decision makers in from other offices to the country, to the Northwest Arkansas region. And Donnie King said in the announcement, that's where he sees a great opportunity for the company is to have several of these key decision makers working in close proximity and have quick, actionable ideas for innovation, that sort of thing. The second part is I think there's also probably a financial element to this decision, right? Rising costs, inflation. Tyson's profit margins have been soaring the past couple of years, and that's maybe cooled off a little bit with inflation and some other factors regarding beef inventory and meat packers, not just Tyson Foods, but meat packers having to pay more for ranchers, for cattle. So I think this is maybe one way to negate some of those financial concerns, if you will. Maybe not concerns, but some of those financial matters for the company.
All right, the jobs that they're wanting to relocate, as we've mentioned, are corporate jobs. They've come from a lot of previous acquisitions that Tyson Foods has made. Kind of explain a little bit of that background of some of the major acquisitions that Tyson's made that gave them those properties in the other states that they're wanting to move to Arkansas.
Right, so two of these, most of these jobs are in Tyson's beef division and its prepared food division. And Tyson has operated, by and large, the beef division out of South Dakota. They're in Dakota Dunes. And that's been the result of an acquisition, I think 2001, when the company bought IBP for a little over $3 billion. And it kept those jobs there and kept the beef division there. And then in the Chicagoland area, that was as a result of about $6.5 billion acquisition the company made in 2014 of Hillshire Farms, and there's several brands there, including the Jimmy Dean sausage brand, Ballpark beef or Ballpark hot dog brand. So there's a lot of jobs there, and then as a result of that acquisition, Tom Hayes came onto the company and eventually became CEO for a short period. And during his tenure, he outsourced a lot of the company's marketing jobs up to Chicago as well. So combined, you've got about 500 jobs in Illinois and those 500 jobs in South Dakota that have been operating in those two markets for the past, going back over a couple of decades.
So we know that these jobs are coming to Northwest Arkansas. They're white-collar jobs primarily because they're at their corporate headquarters there. What's the consensus among Northwest Arkansas business leaders? I mean, obviously you never want to turn down 1,000 corporate jobs coming to the region, but it does put some stress on workforce. It does put some stress on infrastructure. It puts certainly some stress on the housing market. What's the dialogue been initially?
Well, as with anything, I guess it depends on who you ask. If it's good news or bad news, as you mentioned, just with those two things alone, infrastructure and housing, whether Tyson Foods made this announcement or not, those are things that are going to be challenges for Northwest Arkansas in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, simply because, if you step back and look, you're talking about 1,000 people, maybe less than that, who choose to accept the relocation of Tyson Foods to come here. So there's about 900 to 1,000 people that move to the two-county area every month anyway. So with this phased relocation that they're calling it, I'm not sure that you're just going to, it's not going to be a major impact like, say, several years ago when Walmart had the mandate to have all their suppliers have an office in Northwest Arkansas. That was a major region-changing announcement. I don't think that's the case here, but yes, it is going to continue to put just an added strain on the housing market. You know, realtors, of course, are salivating at the news because they're going to have some more home buyers come into the market. But yeah, it's good news for some, bad news for others.
I'm thinking about starting a construction business up there in Northwest Arkansas just to build homes at certain different levels there.
You'd be busy.
All right, so also too, you mentioned it, you've touched on it. There may not be some people that will take Tyson up on this opportunity to relocate to Northwest Arkansas, the folks in the Dakota and South Dakota, the folks in Chicago. Is there a sense of how large the potential workforce is to accept some of those jobs in Northwest Arkansas from the current workforce or labor force that's there?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that's what a lot of people are wondering is how many will take this. You know, Tyson Foods is presenting it as there are no layoffs, like you've mentioned. There's no layoffs associated with it. Your job is still available. It's just that your job is going to require you to move to Northwest Arkansas. How many people will be excited about that? Probably not all of them. Will it be a majority of them? I think so. But then those are jobs that you would think the company still wants to maintain and still have to fill. So there may be some opportunity that this is a job creator here in the region for people already here that have those skill sets that they're looking for, whether it's marketing or any other type of job that's left unfilled. So I think that'll be the interesting part of this, is to see how many of these corporate employees choose to come to Northwest Arkansas, which I'm sure they've all heard about as one of the best places to live, work, and play through the marketing efforts of many stakeholders. But yeah, we'll see how many people end up making the move.
I've never been to South Dakota, but I have been to Chicago area where some of those jobs are. And I mean, I like to visit Chicago, but I think I'd rather live in Northwest Arkansas.
Sure, right.
So what is your next step in terms of following this story? What are you going to kind of be watching for going forward? What's going to be the next kind of level of coverage you think that you'll be wanting to do for the Journal?
Well, I think we talked about one of them. They phrased it a phased relocation. That's going to be starting next year. So does Tyson Foods have a goal of having, if anybody that's going to move, we want you here by X date? Is that going to take a year, or do we want that to be in 8 months? You know, how long is it going to take to get these people and these workers in place? And a significant part of this announcement is, to go along with it, is Tyson Foods is going to expand their corporate real estate footprint, the headquarters here in Springdale, over multiple years. They called it a multi-year expansion, and that's going to involve probably some new construction, new buildings, remodeling and retrofitting existing buildings, maybe on the corporate campus there on Don Tyson Parkway and elsewhere. You know, they have a significant investment in real estate and some high-tech workers in downtown Springdale. So I'm curious to know what that looks like. And they said there'll be additional details about that coming over the next few weeks and months. They'll share some of those plans. And I also think it speaks to the return to work, the return to the office environment, right? You know, not necessarily hybrid or remote working. You know, I think if that were the case, they could have these people, you know, they're not going to bring these people here to work in their homes and be hybrid workers. I mean, the whole idea is we want you here in Northwest Arkansas, and we're going to make the room to have you work in office. So I think it's a kind of a shot in the arm to the return to the office and the return to the physical brick and mortar office space environment. So those are three things I think that we'll be following here as we move on towards the end of the year in early 2023.
Got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left, so take your time answering this next question for me here. You've had an interesting story a couple of weeks ago, not that long ago, about Live Golf, the Saudi Arabian sponsored golf tour that's competing with the PGA. And John Tyson, chairman of the board of Tyson Foods, has apparently had some conversations about bringing a golf tournament to Northwest Arkansas. Tell everybody about that story and a little bit about the golf course that's up there for those that haven't been to the Blessings.
Right. So John Tyson, chairman of the board, is a big golfer, golf fan, and plays golf, and opened his golf course, Blessings Golf Club, just outside of Fayetteville about 15 years ago. And it is a fantastic, if not very challenging, venue. And it has hosted some pretty high-level amateur events, the NCAA tournament for one. John is a friend of Greg Norman. They've been friends for 20 years, going back a long way. Now, of course, Greg is the face and the CEO of this upstart Live Golf Tour that's backed by Saudi Arabian money. That's in the headlines a lot, good or bad, whatever your thoughts are about that, and is luring a lot of top professionals away with exorbitant amounts of money just to compete for exorbitant amounts of money. So they're getting a foothold in the golf world. And so John, he had Greg Norman out to Northwest Arkansas, had him on the grounds at the Blessings to discuss what we don't really know, but he says he's had USGA folks there, he's had PGA folks there. Ultimately, his goal is he wants to showcase his golf course to the best men's players in the world. And if this is an avenue to do that, so far he hasn't had any USGA events or PGA Tour events, but if there's a way for John Tyson to have an LIV golf event and Blessings, I think he would be all over it. I'm not so sure that Greg Norman and the tour side are as eager to make that match, but I think John Tyson would be very eager to stage an LIV golf event at Blessings.
All right, he's Paul Gatling. He's the editor of the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. Always appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Roby.